Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you seem to be. We would like to have everyone come into this moment now, remembering that the only time that is now. So everyone just center in, let go of all thoughts of the past, let go of all future predictions, future planning, and just be here now and breathe. So, as you know, we've been talking about awakening. In fact, that's what we are here for, to help you to awaken from the dream that you seem to find yourself in. That would be the dream of the body, the dream of separation, the dream of apartness, and back into the truth of oneness. So, as we have been saying, you have two parts to your mind. You have the wrong mind, which is where the ego is, and your right mind, which is where the Holy Spirit is. And you are always choosing between the two. You see, you're always choosing to look at things from a place of peace or a place of conflict. If it is a place of conflict, then you are in your ego mind. If it is a place of peace, then you are in your peace of mind with the Holy Spirit, you see. So the thing we want you to realize is there's always two ways of looking at things, you see. So as you go along in your daily life, which is illusion, which is the dream, you have to realize that you are the dreamer of the dream, not a figure in it, you see. Meaning you are the mind that perceives. You are the mind that looks, you see. And you always have two choices of how you're going to look at everything, you see. You can look through the lens of kindness, which is how you were created, or you can look through the lens of unkindness, which is what you made, you see. The ego is what you made. And that is the thing that wants more than the everything. When you are in alignment with who you really are, you have and are everything. And there is nothing that you want or need. You simply are, you see. And that's what you want to wake up to, rather than continuing on the path of this dream of separation, of fear, of anger, of darkness, and realize that none of that exists, or really, none of that is real. You see, it only seems to exist in your experience because you believe it. In fact, how this world came to be in the first place was you took yourself so seriously and your thoughts so seriously, you made the world, you see. So, but now is the time to unwind your mind from the belief in the world. So you want to go from beating the drum of belief in your experiences to begin to question your experiences and remind yourself of the truth of that which you are, which is pure and untouched by anything here in the world, you see. You are love in truth. You are peace in truth. This you have forgotten, you see. And then you took the opposite seriously. Now you can look at the opposite and say, what a crazy idea. I'm ready to wake up. I'm ready to take the steps out of the dream. And all of these steps are gentle, and they are all step by step, little by little. No one's rushing you. The only one who would be rushing you would be actually your ego. And it's so funny because when you wake up, there is no ego. So at any rate, here we are, and here you are, and we are ready for questions.
Thank you. The first question is from Anna G. Master Jesus, I feel very deeply in my soul that this is my last life. Am I destined to awaken fully in this lifetime to make it my last life in the world of illusion? This life is fully dedicated to forgiveness. There's no other purpose for me. Thank you. I am honored to be one of your disciples in the now.
Thank you for your question. One thing we want to say to you is remember this. You are the mind that makes the decisions, you see. We can't tell you if it's your last lifetime. That's a decision you have to make on your own, you see, not by yourself, but with all that you are. Does this make sense?
Waiting for a response.
So what we want also to teach today is the power of your mind, the power of your decisions, which are the power of your choices. Everything you experience is by decision only, and it's your decision, not a decision from outside of your own mind. So we really want you to take this into consideration. If you feel in your heart, in your soul, that this is your last lifetime, then it is. You see, but that is by your decision, you see. No one can tell you if it is or is not. So.
Okay, I do. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you as well.
The next question is from Carrie B. I have experienced several healings lately after I asked my miracle buddies to hold me in the perfection of God's creation of me. I have also noted a great decrease in the amount of medicine I have needed these past few days. Can you talk about this to help me more fully understand?
Yes, indeed. So just as we were saying to the previous questioner, everything you experience is by decision only. In your own mind, you made a decision to accept healing, you see. And so that is really the source of your healing. There's nothing wrong with asking for others to hold you in light and in healing. Sometimes they can help you strengthen that decision in your own mind, but you have to understand that it comes not from outside of you, but from within your own mind. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. Anything else?
I feel like I have just experienced a massive shift from a past life.
Wonderful. The shifts are wonderful. And these too are a decision of the mind.
Rest and let it integrate.
Yes, indeed. Just say, I have made this decision, and embrace it. Don't analyze it. Just let it be. Does this answer your question?
Except the Holy Spirit has control.
Yes, but you have to remember that you and the Holy Spirit are one in truth. You see, the Holy Spirit is not outside of you. The Holy Spirit is not an entity apart from you. The Holy Spirit is one with you, you see. So when you choose with the Holy Spirit, you and the Holy Spirit are the same. Does this make sense?
Meaning for, I mean the ego can rest and not try to control.
You can laugh about that because the ego will probably still try. But you have the wherewithal to choose differently, you see. Knowing that you're a mind, you don't have to go down that way. Remember, you have two parts to your mind. If the ego acts up, just give it a smile and just say, there it is. And don't fight against it. Don't go along with it, but just see it as it is. Just a tiny mad idea, and one that you're ready to move on from. Does this make sense?
Oh, perfect. Oh, yes, it is.
Wonderful.
That is my goal, to keep in focus.
Beautiful. Focus is a big deal, you see. Remember how we were saying your mind is powerful, so your focus is powerful. In fact, whatever you aspire to achieve needs your focus. So, and that is a single pointed focus, not a distracted mind wandering focus, you see, which wouldn't make sense at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you.
The next question is from Joel A. I have been studying about our microbiome and the healthy gut bacteria, as I had some health concerns related to such. In my research for a cure, I came across people who believe there is a loving life force that promotes good physical and mental health healing through the healthy cultured gut bacteria life force that provides the bacteria with life, as well as undesired life forces in the unwanted types of gut bacteria that cause undesired effects. My question to you is, are you part of that microbiome life force that promotes this healing? If so, does that create a stronger bond with you with having healthy gut microbiome function?
Not at all. First of all, we love you. What we were just saying before, and what we've been talking about for a long time, you are not a body. You are the mind that thinks it's in a body. You are the mind that needs healing, you see. It is never the body that actually needs the healing, but the mind that needs the healing. And the way to heal the mind is to step by step change your mind, you see. We have nothing to do with the gut bacteria or anything to do with the physical body at all, because we don't believe in the body. In fact, you believe you're a body, you believe in the body. We don't. So lighten up about it. Do whatever you feel is right for you. We're not saying to not do it. We're not saying to do it. We are saying don't take it seriously, and know which thought system it comes from, which would be, of course, the ego mind, you see, because we have nothing to do with the body, you see. The ego has everything to do with the body, but don't feel guilty about it. Just laugh a little bit more. Don't take it seriously. Don't call yourself names or call the body names or anything like that, but just be light about it. Do what feels good to you, you see. But know that anything of this world, nothing of this world will bring you home to who you really are, you see. If a body is healed here, it doesn't mean that you are enlightened. It doesn't mean that you are home. Does this make sense? So something you were saying, that does it strengthen our connection? It does not, you see. You don't need a body to strengthen our connection. We are already one. Does this make sense?
Waiting for Joel. Yes, I like it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wonderful.
All right, the next question is from Philip F. Lately, I've had a number of injuries as a result of falls and possibly other things. This causes some bodily dysfunctions, fractures, limited functioning in certain areas, and pain. It's challenging to believe, quote, I am not a body, no matter how many times I repeat it under these circumstances, let alone see all of this as just an illusion. Your comments and perspective would be appreciated.
Wonderful. So yes, it is hard to see that you're not a body when you're in pain. Absolutely. That's one of the ego's best cards, so to speak. Because once you're in pain, you can't deny that you have a body or that you think that you're a body or in a body. But what you want to do is, instead of taking it seriously, like we've been saying, instead of making it more real to you, look on your situation lovingly, with compassion, and with gentleness, and just make peace with what is. And instead of seeing it as an attack in any way, or any way to distract you from truth, begin to use truth in the situation and see that when you say, I am not a body, I am free, you can say, this has no effect on me. You see, whatever happens to your body cannot and will not ever affect who and what you really are, who is spirit, you see. And so instead of wondering how you could not be a body when it feels so painful, you look at it and say, this is part of my dream, and this portion is indeed my classroom right now. And now I have two options of how I look at this. Am I going to look at it with the loving teacher of forgiveness, the Holy Spirit, or am I going to look at it with the harsh, judgmental teacher, which is the ego, you see? So the ego would point fingers at you and say things and scream and all of that, pain. The Holy Spirit would say, this has no effect on you. This is but a dream. And the way to move through this dream is to be loving to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and kind. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. So,
And the next question is from Gloria D. The more I study and practice A Course in Miracles, the more physical pain I feel and conflict I see. I keep forgiving every single thing that makes me uncomfortable, and I receive healing, but more just keeps coming, almost at a rapid speed. What am I doing wrong? Or is this the normal process? I feel bombarded with pain.
it's quite common that as you come into awareness of truth, that these things will happen, but don't, again, take it seriously, meaning don't make it any more than it is, you see. This is your classroom. How to get beyond this part to learn the lesson is to look on yourself lovingly, which is forgiveness, instead of seeing it as something that is happening, you see, because that's looking at it and saying, here's something I have to forgive that is real, that needs forgiveness. That's not forgiveness, you see. Real forgiveness is, this is not real, and this is just part of my dream, and it's how I look at it that matters, you see. And that's really what we want to talk about, is just the way that you look at things. So rather than looking at it from the perspective of the harsh teacher, the ego, who's saying this is one of your forgiveness lessons, forgive it. You want to look at it and say, this has nothing to do with who I really am. This is part of my dream, and it's how I move through it, which is, I am now going to do it with love and not take it seriously. It's just one of those things in the world, in the dream, that come up. It's not a big deal. So don't make it a big deal. We know pain is very difficult to deal with, you see. We're not saying pretend like you're not in pain. What we are saying is don't make it a metaphysical big deal to you. Does this make sense?
So basically, ignore the pain and just love myself.
Love yourself. Don't necessarily try to ignore the pain if it's at a point that you can't. Do whatever you would do as a normal person would to take care of pain, but do it without taking it seriously, you see. So if you have to take something to help you with the pain, just do it, but know that it's part of the illusion. It's nothing to do with you, you see, or your growth, or yourself as spirit, you see. Does this make sense? What does have to do with yourself as spirit is you look at it and say, this is a dream. I'll do whatever I seem to have to do, but I'm not going to take it to be anything more than just another part of the dream. It's not a big deal, you see. Does this make sense?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. I love you.
We love you too. We love you too. We absolutely love you all.
This next question is from Regina L. How did the supposed separation come about? Thinking about it, one realizes that it actually didn't come to that. When the question arises, the questioner accepts the separation as real. Is that so? What is the question of all questions?
We're going to talk about this first question first. So the first question you were asking us, if actually you were saying that by looking at it, you see that the separation didn't happen, and that, can you say it one more time, that last part?
Oh, when the question arises, the questioner accepts the separation as real.
Yes, see, that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is question that, you see. The separation isn't real at all. So when you come to that this didn't happen, then it didn't happen, you see. Does this make sense? That's the illusion. The illusion is that it did happen, and that's why you think that it did, but it didn't really happen. And you are not separate.
Waiting for a response. A bit confusing for me.
Well, your question is a bit confusing, because what you want to do is just accept this separation that seems to have occurred. Now you have the awareness that it is not real, and you take the steps out of it rather than analyzing the thought of separation. Does this make sense? And as far as your question, we've told you, and we'll say this again, you fell asleep when you seemed to come into this existence that is not real. You believed that it was real. You forgot to laugh, and then you took it seriously, and a whole world arose from that thought, you see, what we call the tiny mad idea. And what your job is now is to accept the atonement, which means to cease taking it seriously. Does this make sense?
Oh, yes, I understand.
Wonderful.
So the second question is, what is the question of all questions? The thought behind this, here too, it seems to be up to the questioner who asks for the question of all questions, which indicates that there must be an answer to this question. In wholeness, no question can remain. Is that so? And would you say something about that?
All we're going to say is that's, again, part of that kind of confusion and thinking too much, you see. And so you accept that the question isn't even there, really. There is no question. There is no question at all, you see. Does this make sense? The questions, yes, those kinds of questions come from the ego mind, wondering what you are. Spirit knows you, you see, knows you as whole because that's all that you are. So there is no question about you from who you really are. All questions that arise about you come from your ego, you see. And instead of taking it seriously and diving deep with it, so to speak, you can look at it and smile and say, I am free. I am still as God created me. I am spirit, and I know this. Does this make sense?
Oh, thank you very much. It's perfect.
You're welcome.
So someone asked, in the state of being, there's no question?
Absolutely. Because there's only isness. Isness just is, you see. So there is no question. That's why isness and beingness is eternal, you see. It doesn't question itself. It just knows itself as itself and simply is itself.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jim J has this question. People use many different terms, such as consciousness, Holy Spirit, higher self, etc. Last month, you shared that consciousness is part of the ego, not the Holy Spirit, and that the Holy Spirit reminds me that I am not the body. So when I observe outside of myself and witness the ego, its shenanigans and patterns, who is it that is observing? Is it my higher self or Holy Spirit? Thank you for allowing me to continue my understanding.
Wonderful. So the one that is observing either of the thought systems, which you named just now, either the Holy Spirit or the ego, the one that observes the thought systems, the two that you're always choosing between, is the observer, we'll just say. The one that decides, the one that chooses, you see. And so you're sitting there in the chair of decision making, and you say, which one do I choose? Do I choose conflict, which is of the ego? Or do I choose peace, which is of the Holy Spirit? And so you're always going between the two, you see. So whatever you are observing, you can always see two ways. Does this make sense? If you find yourself overwhelmed with conflict, you can choose again. You don't have to stay in that. Whereas if you find yourself looking with peace and feeling at peace, you can remain in peace, you see. And this is always through awareness of which mind you are working with. So, does this make sense?
Waiting for a response. I get the ego and the other. I guess I'm trying to better define the other, but probably thinking too much.
Yes, indeed, thinking too much, yes. Just see it as there is a part of your mind that makes decisions. You see, that part of your mind observes both sides of the coin, so to speak. And it always is seeing, do I want to experience conflict or do I want to experience peace? Do I want to wake up from the dream or do I want to stay asleep? You see, so just see yourself as that, you see. It's the part of your mind that makes decisions. Does this make sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Carrie B asked, is it true that we are actually huge beyond comprehension?
Well, there is no term for size because there is no size. So we'd say that you are beyond size. You are outside of size, in truth. There is no size, just as there is no world. Does this make sense?
Waiting for an answer from Carrie.
If we were to say that you are huge, then that means that you are form, that you are limited. We want you to realize that you are beyond this. You are beyond that which seems to be form. Form is only a thought in your mind, you see. So there is no huge, there is no little, there is no size, there is no world.
I tell my grandchildren that this body is like a fingernail in size compared to the grandeur that they are in truth.
That's beautiful. But you can feel the difference between saying grandeur and huge. Huge is very much speaking of size physically or form, and grandeur is beyond form, you see. And that's why it's wonderful to have these discussions with your children, to say you are not a body. The body is just a thought. It isn't real. And you are not it, you see.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sylvia has a question. I was following every one of yours and Aaron's words, but for a few weeks now, I don't feel that pull anymore. Does that mean that the ego is involved?
Are you judging this or accepting it?
I also find a hinge of guilt when missing a session with you. Any advice?
Well, guilt is of the ego. If you feel guilt, then the ego is absolutely involved. That if you didn't do something that brought on the feeling of guilt, then it wouldn't even matter, you see. So we're not saying that being on one of these calls or not is important. What's important is that you don't let yourself feel guilty about any of it, you see. Remember, it's about content of your mind and not form. So not behavior and not action, none of that. It is how you think and how you are being in mind, you see. Is it coming from a place of peace, or is it coming from a place of escape, so to speak? Does this make sense?
Waiting for Sylvia.
But remember also that, again, if you choose to not attend, don't feel guilty about that at all. There's never anything to feel guilty about, you see.
I don't know yet. Thank you.
You're welcome. So just tune into yourself about that and go with the flow, you see. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So at any rate, remember what we were saying before. You have two ways of viewing every experience that you seem to have. This is important for you to be aware of because you are the one who makes decisions. So if you find yourself in a state of conflict, know that that's a state of mind and that you can change your mind about whatever it is you seem to be going through, you see. You can look with love, with kindness, with peace, or you can look with anger, fear, frustration, guilt, and so on. You always have choices, and these are the only two choices. We call it two choices because both encapsulate one thought system. So the thought system of conflict includes things such as anger and aggression and fear and hatred and darkness, whereas peace and forgiveness and love and light are all one thought system as well. So you always have a choice between these two, you see. And so if you look at it this way, you can tell by how you feel which thought system you've chosen. So as you go along in your daily life, pay closer attention to how you feel, you see. Just know that if you feel disquiet in any way, you have chosen to listen to the wrong thought system, the wrong teacher. And how to change this is to actually change your teacher, change the thought system you are working with. Does this make sense to everyone? So you want to go about, and remember that awakening is going from mindlessness, which is of the body, to mindfulness, which is of the mind and spirit, you see. So when you awaken, you look lovingly upon everything. You don't take it personally. You take everything lightly because you see everything is either an expression of love or a call for love. And there is nothing else, you see. So if you are enlightened, then what you do is you love without constraint. You forgive without constraint. You simply give love to know love, you see. So, any questions right now? Here's a question.
Hello.
Hello.
I would like, I've set my intention and I feel very firm in deciding that I want to go further and higher and to have complete peace of mind. And I find that when things that can get a little dull, you know, when it doesn't, when you don't, because it's a step-by-step process. And sometimes I feel like I struggle with the feelings like, I know there was a teacher here in Form that he called it the juice, and just turning to the juice to fill those duller moments.
Yes.
I wondered if you could talk about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one thing that happens, that you are so used to the juice, as you were saying, that it feels a little off to not have that included in your life. But what you can do is say, okay, this is my classroom. I'd like to see this differently. How can I see this differently? I can see peace instead of this, you see. I can use this exact experience to help guide my mind back to waking up, you see. Meaning, don't hide from the news, okay? Don't hide from disquiet, but also don't look at it like it's part of you. Does this make sense? Or don't try to fit it into you. Does this make sense? And the other thing is, as you go forward in peace, every experience is new to you because time does not exist, you see. So nothing is based on the past. Everything is fresh and here and now, you see. It's the boredom comes from thinking of past, you see, then you're in the past. If you are bored, it's because your mind is in the past, you see. Or your mind is looking, trying to figure out what's happening in the future and becoming frustrated because you can't see that, when you could just be here now and just embrace it all as it comes, you see. Does this make sense? Can you feel that though? The timelessness, that every experience is new when you don't have it with the past or the future, you see. So
Yes, I had an exercise from someone that talked about meditating, and you kind of tell yourself that you're new to this world, and at that moment you're in now, and your mind is still
beautiful.
and so I kind of know what you were talking about.
Yes. So try that more, you see. And just do it here and there, you see. And when you find yourself bored, bring your mind to that process. Does this make sense?
I try.
Yes. We know that. And see, that's the other thing is that can come up. So you make peace with that as well. And if you're not ready for it, that's okay too. Meaning, don't feel guilty or wanting to find the juice again, but just don't take it seriously and know what thought system it's coming from. You see, I know that this search for juice to fill my time because I'm bored is coming from my ego thought system, but I don't know what else to do. So, Holy Spirit, be you in charge. Take this and help me to see the truth. Please unwind my mind from the desire, you see. And that's what it is. There's a desire for something other than truth, you see, or other than everything, you see. Remember how we said the ego wanted more than the everything. That's part of the tiny mad idea. It's the desire for more than the everything. So don't beat yourself up if your mind goes looking for the more than the everything, but be kind to yourself and just begin to loosen that hold on it by not taking it seriously and not beating yourself up, you see. And do, when you feel ready to do so, ask the Holy Spirit to unwind your mind from that desire, you see.
Well, it does happen less and less. So
Wonderful. So
Yeah.
you're doing good. So point that out to yourself more too, you see. So remember, addictions can be hard to kick. That's why everything is incremental here, you see. Nobody's expecting you to drop everything right here and now. If you could, you would, but you can't really because you haven't. Obviously, if you could, you would, but you didn't and you aren't. So you have to look at yourself differently. Look at yourself from the mind of peace, which says, okay, I guess I'm not ready yet, but I'm going to keep going and seeing if I can't do this, you see, little by little. So
okay, thank you.
thank you. Thank you for this question.
Catherine has a question.
Wonderful.
Can Jesus speak of the frequency produced of the different thought systems? I'm interested in the electrical and magnetic idea of thoughts and feelings to create more fun in the dream.
Well, we can't really talk to you about the physical electrical currents or anything like that, but we can tell you that the thought system of the ego is, we'll just say it's a lower frequency. And just think about that. We won't tell you any more than that. And the thought system of the Holy Spirit is a higher frequency, you see. One is more in the dark, which is illusion. The other is more in the light, which is also illusion. Remember, an illusion is an illusion, and there is no hierarchy of illusion. Does this make sense?
Yeah, oh, indeed.
So whether it be light or dark, happy or sad, it is all illusion, you see. But you want to be at peace, so you want to gravitate towards what brings you more peace, you see, and what is a higher vibration, because we will say, if you're speaking of vibrations, peace is a higher vibration than conflict. Conflict in the physical illusion in the world feels like it's more exciting sometimes because it seems more aggressive than peace, obviously, but it's not the higher road and it's not more powerful. It just seems to be more powerful to you at this time, but you can always choose peace instead of conflict. And that's where the real work is done. So, does this answer your question?
Waiting on Catherine. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So, how are we on time? You can say how, what. Okay,
Carrie
there's
has a question.
Wonderful.
I have many lucid dreams. Can you tell me the meaning of a recent dream where I was taken up 37 floors, then down 2 floors below the main level to what felt like an ICU, and there was a door that was clearly marked with my name.
Interesting. Well, you being the dreamer of the dream, what does it symbolize to you? Because we can't tell you what it means because it's your dream. And your symbols are yours. So when you think about it, do you find there's a symbolism for you that speaks to you about the number 37? Well, we will say if it took you up 37 floors and then you dropped down below, that's kind of like the entering into this plane of existence, you see. You step down, you see. You step down into the dream. Does this make sense?
Not directly 37, deep inner work.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
So taking up 37 floors, then down 2 floors below the main level to what felt like an ICU.
So apparently there is some healing that has to be done in that level. So wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pamela has a question. My body often shakes, sometimes very strongly, when I am in high vibration energies. Can Jesus please speak about why this happens? And is there anything I can or should do to stop it?
There's nothing that you should do to stop it. There's nothing wrong with it. It just is what the mind has decided occurs when you come into higher frequencies, you see. Although it is part of the illusion, it is not real, but this is the kind of experience that is thought to happen when you come into higher frequencies. And you could see it as something saying, you have reached a higher frequency. Does this make sense?
Waiting on Pamela. Not really.
Then let it go. Just be at peace with it. It's just an experience. There's nothing more to it. It's an experience, and it's one that you have when you feel that you have entered into higher frequencies. Just accept it.
It happens so automatically.
So accept it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, these experiences that some have are just to be accepted and not analyzed. Just let it be what it is. Some have said, it is grace, it is love, you see. And we think that makes sense. It is love.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Mary B has a question. I'm choosing the will of God. I will the kingdom of heaven within to awaken. Can you speak about will?
Well, will is a part of your mind, and it's part of a thought system that you don't actually need willpower, you see. Willpower comes from the separation, you see. That's nothing to feel guilty about. It's just that willpower is less than being. Does this make sense?
Waiting for an answer.
See, you made a decision, so that is your will. Your will is to be one with the kingdom. That is your will. That is your decision. You see, does this make sense?
Yes, talking about God's will.
Yes, indeed. And in truth, your will and God's will is the same, you see. So the willpower we were speaking of previously, before, we're talking about the little willpower, which wills itself into conflict and so on. But when you align your mind with the will of God, your will, you realize, is the same as God's, which is peace, which is love, which is light, and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sylvia has a question. Is color part of the illusion, or is that in oneness?
Color is part of the illusion because it takes eyes to see color, you see. You can perceive color. There is color that is indescribable and does not require eyes. But that's so far from this plane of existence, there is no way for us to explain what we mean by that, just accept that it is, you see.
Right, thank you. And the same with sound?
Yes, indeed, all of it.
Hmm.
All frequencies.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
So AMC has a question. If a same grievance keeps coming back over and over again, how can we heal it? Do we keep choosing the right mind over and over again, 1,000 times a day?
Yes, indeed. However many times it takes, you have to keep choosing the right mind over the wrong mind, you see. But here's what we want to say. If a grievance keeps coming up, don't push it away. When you choose the right mind, you look at it directly and you actually embrace it with love, you see. And that's what heals it. So that's bringing the darkness to the light rather than bringing the light to the darkness, you see. So when you have a grievance, you merely see it as it is. This is a grievance. I don't need it. I want to let it go. And so I am bringing it to the light so that it can be shined away and let it go, you see. Does this make sense?
Waiting for Bruce. Oh, yes, thank you. AMC,
Very
sorry.
good.
So there's another question here's a question from Bruce. If it is an illusion, are our relationships with our loved ones real?
Nothing in the illusion is real, but can be reflections, you see. So if you are loving, you see, ask this question again. If this is illusion,
If this is an illusion, are our relationships with our loved ones real?
everything in the illusion is an illusion, including relationships, you see, because they are simply reflections of something, you see, or symbolisms of something. Does this make sense? So there are characters in your dream. They are not real. And your relationship to them isn't actually real, like reality, but are in fact pieces of thought that you can use to help yourself heal your mind, you see. And what we mean by this is that you use your relationships to wake up from the dream rather than stay asleep, you see. Does this make sense?
Waiting for a response.
But in truth, the reality of your soul and another soul, there is the relationship that is only oneness, you see. So that is true reality. Oneness is real. Separate relationships are not real because separation does not exist. See, separation is the illusion. Seeing everyone as different than you is illusion. Everyone actually is the same, you see.
Okay. Jacqueline asks, please, may I ask about reincarnation? Is it a choice that we make in order to learn more, or is it a cycle that we wish to break out of? Thank you.
You're welcome. It's not reincarnation that we would call it, but incarnation. You incarnate over and over again to learn lessons, and it's up to you when you want to stop that process. You see, it's not something that you have to do, but it does take your own mind's decision for that, you see. Does this make sense?
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you always have a choice. You can incarnate or not.
Carol asked a question. Are forgiveness and grace the same?
Forgiveness and grace. Grace and forgiveness, you can look at it and think of it as the same because it all comes from love. Think about it like that.
Okay, we have one last question from Gloria D. 99% of my mind knows the truth and that we are really one with God, and that makes me want to go home immediately. The other 1% of me is afraid of going home because there's a doubt that God is real. Is that why we are stuck here? How do we rid ourselves of that doubt?
You're actually not stuck here. It's only a thought that can be changed, but it's the fact that you're so afraid of God, actually, because you think, and this is the ego thinks that it has destroyed God and there is only punishment if you go back to God. And that's the fear, you see. But if you can move beyond that and know that that is not true, that's part of the tiny mad idea, you can begin to look at it and laugh it off. Say, that's ridiculous. God is only love. How can that which is only love also be punitive? It can't. It can't. It only is love, and it only has love, and only extends love. So it's really fear that keeps you from fully awakening. You see, does this make sense?
Ah, yes, but I feel stuck here because I truly want to go home.
Yes. The stuck feeling is just a state of mind, and one that you can indeed let go of. But that's little by little. So as it comes up, you just say, I release, you see. So
Yes, thank you so much.
you're welcome. So we have appreciated this coming together and joining with all of you once again. As always, we love you and we thank you for joining with us. We'll join with you all once again soon, but at the same time, we are with you always. So you can actually speak to us in your own mind, no matter what. We are always with you, and we love you and thank you as always. Namaste.